The first time I heard it, I was like, no, because I've run a business before and I do this. And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, yeah, if you don't have a process, everything is Sisyphus as rock.
Healthcare is a business. It's a good business, but I think when we start attaching money to it.
This episode is brought to you by PT Pintcast Media. If you've ever thought about launching a podcast or YouTube channel to grow your brand or your clinic or your business, we can help. Find out how now at ptpintcast.com or email me, jimmy@ptpintcast.com. Our guest today has been a payment chair, a chapter president, and now he's shaping policy at the state level. But his real passion, helping physical therapists grow their leadership skills through clinical excellence and operational savvy. He believes advocacy isn't optional, it's essential. And if you've ever thought clinical outcomes and business excellence can't go hand in hand, he's here to prove you wrong. Oh, and he used to coach select soccer for 7 years, aiming for the pros before pivoting to PT. Today on the show, meet Josh Farley. I say it all the time. I should just hit record the second people log on because all like the good stuff. We just had like a 15-minute conversation.
Yeah.
It would have been so great. But Josh, welcome to the show, man.
Man, it's great to be here. I'm glad to be on.
Thanks for having me. Your superhero background is a little bit different. I tend to seek out people who are a little different and do non-traditional things, right? Other people can talk to traditional things are important too.
Right.
Not my thing. Someone else will do that. So you do things that are a little bit non-traditional in this world. What are those things? How do you explain them at a dinner party?
So the way that I explain it is my job is to help people grow their processes. I think that a lot of the times what in PT, we learn to be really great clinicians, but there's an inordinate amount of time which should be spent on being a good clinician, but healthcare is a business. And unfortunately, we've got, and there's a lot of instances where we have non-clinicians that are actually driving the business of physical therapy. And that it can work, but there's a certain nomenclature and a certain language that we all speak and understand, and we're able to take. So what I try to do is I try to take good looks like and then show a process of how to make that consistently good. And, I'm doing some work comp consulting and I'm doing some operation consulting. The work comp is specific to processes because that's a different animal altogether. As opposed to just, working with private insurance and Medicare and all those types of things. They have their own host of issues. So, but I think in a nutshell, what I do is I help people with processes.
The first time I ever heard someone say this, and it's probably someone famous because I catch on to quotes. Again, I'm really good at quotes, but bad at who said it. And it was, people don't run businesses, people run processes, processes run businesses. And I was so mad at that. At the first time I heard it, I was like, no, because I've run a business before and I do this. And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, yeah, if you don't have a process, everything is Sisyphus as rock.
Right.
Like if you didn't have a process on how to, ship widgets and you sold widgets and every time an order came in, you just had to figure it out a different way, you'd sell 3 widgets and be exhausted.
Absolutely.
So once I figured that out, I was like, I got it. How do you get the people that you work with to, number one, they have to, this needs to be your shared reality, right? So they're going to go from, no, I want to individualize everything, right? Because then we bring in our bleeding heart of physical therapy. I want to make everything special. And I'm like, listen, special and a process can be there. You can have a little variability or a way to make something special, and I don't know what the math is, but most, if not close to all, needs to be processizable or you will not scale. You won't be able to get through a week. How do you get people to like sort of share that reality with you if they don't have a process background?
So what I generally tell people, and I wanted to if we're measuring these things and we're keeping track of these things and we're trying to put these processes in place, and some of those are KPI measured or, some, key performance indicator measured things, I always tell people that what you did is the key performance indicators. You can't change that. That is a numeric picture of your behavior.
Right.
And so if you take that numeric picture, what you can do is you can extrapolate and look then at the behaviors that got you there and then build those processes through those behaviors. Because really processes it's all just behavioral change. But I think when one of the challenges is when people start talking about process improvement and KPIs and, metrics and all these different things. It's scary because they think, oh, you don't want me to treat people. You want me to get to X, Y, and Z. And I just take it back and say, you've already done this. This is what you did. This is what you treated. This is how that turned out numerically. In order for us to pay you, in order for us to, grow the business, in order for us to take care of patients that, may not have the ability to do all these things, we have to take care of the business side of it. Because one of my favorite quotes is "No margin, no mission."
I like that.
So you've got to have a margin to be able to fulfill your mission, because business is healthcare is a business. I mean, it's a good business, but I think when we start attaching money to it, I think people get like skittish about it for some reason. You know what I mean? I mean, because they don't like that. I was like, well, so I do a lecture. I do a lecture every year at the PT school, and the first thing I ask is, who's here going to work for free when they get out? Silence.
Of course not.
Yeah, I'm not going to work for free. I think if I had to do it, I try to take the fear and the scariness out of it and let them understand the reality of it. This is the reality. But that doesn't mean the patients still don't drive our business.
Because it feels like you have to pick one over the other. For some reason, myself included, we sort of have this, well, it needs to be good. It needs to be great. It needs to come from the heart. It needs to benefit the patient. So that's okay. They feel like if they say it needs to be profitable, sometimes it's like you have to turn one off to turn the other on, when that's not really the case.
Right. No, absolutely not. I mean, if you look at, let's say we're looking at outpatient PT, because that's where my background is, right? So if you're looking at that and you go, okay, we're going to look at your cancellation rate. Well, what does your cancellation rate really say?
There you go.
I mean, what is that saying about? And it just says, let's say you have a very high cancellation rate, or no show rate or whatever. Generally what you find is there's a disconnect between you and your patients. And we find that those people are falling off. So if you can actually go back and look at their notes and go, they're falling off. Well, why are they falling off? It could be, I had one, for example, one guy that I was mentoring when he was coming up, and it was a very interesting thing. I sat and watched him do an evaluation, and great history, all of these things. He's a great clinician, and then he went straight from his history and then just started getting up and doing all his objective measures. And we sat down and we talked, and I said, there was nothing technically wrong with what you did. I said, however, did you ever think to ask the patient if they had anything else that you needed to know that you had not asked,
right,
prior to going into your objective measure? And that with that one change, his cancellation rate went up like 10%, went down 10%.
What's the reason behind that? I have an opinion.
Like, the reason behind it's we're treating the patient. We're not treating the injury. Right. We're treating the patient, and what's important to that patient may not be evident to you. And so by asking the question, what's important to you, and saying, did I not ask the questions that maybe you wanted me to answer, then you've connected with that patient. And they've made that connection with you, that he's treating me.
There it is.
Versus he doesn't care about me. He just wants to get my arm moving.
Right. Well, number one, as a former radio guy, transitioning from one thing to another without a bridge, without some sort of explanation, that's just weird, and like a juxtaposition, right?
It was awkward.
Yeah. But there's that answer, which is connection. So if I don't feel connected, and then I leave, even if you did a bunch of stuff, when he was in the car on the way home, wherever the patient was, if they didn't feel that connection, that's a big reason that you can see on a scorecard, but it's hard to figure out what that is. Well, why is the drop? I don't know. I've got all these certifications, and I'm a good guy, and I get paid. When patients do show up, they get better. There's a way to look at that process to a KPI.
And it really was no major change. It was just a matter of just a little bit of a tweak. And those little tweaks is what I try to find, is really what it boils down to.
Well, I mean, off the top of your head, changing that cancellation rate, what could that do to someone's business? I mean, if you change someone's cancellation rate 10% over the life of their business, that's a big deal.
I mean, you look at, let's say, depending on what your net rate is, if you're getting, let's say, we'll make it easy, $100 a visit, right? On average, net rate. So $100 a visit, and let's say 10%, and you're seeing 60 patients a week, or you scheduled 60 and you're seeing 10 patients, it's $1,000 extra a week. I mean, so it makes a huge difference. And in this business, the margin is just not even, you know, the company that I was working for, we actually had a year over year turnaround of about $475,000 in EBITDA. And we moved the needle on 4 different things, and we moved them less than 1%. That's all it takes. It doesn't, and I think that's where people get caught up, is it doesn't take.
It's not a Hail Mary.
No, you're
It could
not
be just
having
getting
to
an extra yard, a couple yards per carry.
Yeah, you're not having to hit a home run every time, and base hits win the game. And you can still take care of those patients because we're not asking you to see. And the problem is when it goes into a volume issue, oh, we just need to see more patients. No, that's not generally the problem.
Right.
It's generally just we're not minding the business side of it, and we're not, and which translates to patient care.
Right.
Because if the patients are our business, if we're not taking care of them and they're not showing up, then your business is going to falter.
Are you still stuck spending hours on administrative tasks? Empower EMR automates scheduling, billing, and documentation so you can actually focus on your patients, not your paperwork. Book a free demo now at empoweremr.com. I'm going to set you up on this one. Operational excellence and clinical excellence, do they belong together?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Why?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because it's just like I said before, it's just a measure. Those operational measures are just a numeric picture of what you did. And if your people are showing up, if your outcomes are tied and they're better, and I've seen numerous times where really, really good clinicians have really, really good operational efficiencies because their patients want to be there. And so when they show up, and then when they're showing up for an entire plan of care, and most of the really, really good clinicians actually have to kick their patients out and say, listen, you don't need me anymore. Like you see those clinicians, and they're just superior, they're just superior. So I could tie it to it 100%.
So now I'm going to ask you to now extrapolate from, you work with businesses or individuals or organizations, but now if we're going to zoom out and talk about a profession, what do you see as the biggest fork in the road for the physical therapy profession? How do we stay in the driver's seat? Listen, no one's going to come to us tomorrow, no matter how much we advocate. And I think that people should do advocacy. It ain't my bag, but it's someone else's, and it needs to happen. Right.
Right.
But no one's going to all of a sudden wake up and double what they pay us. Like, it ain't going to happen. Right. So how do we stay in the driver's seat then? What's the biggest fork in the road that if we take the left and not the right, or the right and not the left in the fork, we'll be better off for it?
I think for me, the biggest, so the way we have to go as a profession, especially in outpatient, because that is, but there's also some ties into some of the other acute care and things like that, where we need to become revenue generators, and we need to become revenue generators up front.
Okay.
So like Utah, I think it was Utah, they just passed where they were designated as primary care providers.
Correct. Yep. APTA Utah.
That's massive. Because now if you think about, okay, what does that necessarily mean? So I think the fork is, do we go that route, primary care, or do we stay and keep being a referral down the referral chain? Primary care is where we have to go, because one of the things that I always told our board was that PT is not overutilized. It's underutilized in the correct space. So until we get in front of everything and get at the front of the, where we can actually get those acute patients, we can actually be an entry point into the healthcare system, be an access point. And now we've been just created let's say in Mississippi, there's probably, I couldn't even tell you how many outpatient clinics. There's hundreds. Well, those become hundreds of access points into the healthcare system for individuals that may or may not have access to it, instead of having to go to a hospital. So I think we have to continue to push towards that primary care, because it's, number one, we're going to be access points, like I said, but number two, the pay tier is going to be higher. Okay, once insurance starts realizing that. And then what we're going to get is we're going to get a lot more data on the actual cost savings of PT because we're going to be PT very, very first. Then you can measure that on down the line of, oh, you don't have to extrapolate, like the DOD did, and good on them, where they said if patients go to 6 visits of physical therapy, the downstream costs are, what's the word, a lot less. So, but they had to extrapolate that by going and looking. Whereas now you can just look at it and go, okay, they went to PT first. Now we can just follow that case and see what they did. So I think, and with that data, then we will be able to then advocate for, number one, less cuts. I don't know that we'll ever get back to where it was, but fewer cuts on in the payment space.
You've said that PTs should have a bigger voice in general in health policy, not just
Correct.
specific PT centric issues. What does that actually look like in practice? And why would PTs want to do that?
I think because I think here's what every profession, healthcare profession, is unique, right? And they have a different skew, but we're all part of the same system. So we can't not have a voice in that system to help impact it and make it the best it possibly can be if it's driven by one or two professions. Because you ask, and this is not a slight on anybody, but you ask a lot of doctors, you ask nurse practitioners, or you ask nurses what PTs do, and they don't really know, and or what OTs do, or what any of these other professions do. They just know that this person came with, I'm going to send them to PT, but that's it. So I think in order for us to maximize the possibilities of our healthcare system, to make sure that it's well-rounded and actually solving healthcare issues, then we need to have a seat at the table, because we're a big part of that. And we need to have a seat at the table, whether it's through PT in a PT company, or whether it's through a medical company, or behavioral health, or all of these other things that you can do. I think it's going to help just round the system out. More voices are better. More points of view are better. They just are.
When physical therapists go from clinician to business owner, or clinician to leader, those are different jobs.
Correct.
I see this a lot with some of my cousins who are in the nursing field. They're like, well, this person became the charge nurse. Well, why? Well, they were around the longest, or they're the best nurse, or they're the most qualified. Then they become leadership. And then people quickly realize that's a different job. It's almost as if you go to a college, there is a management and leadership degree, right? Or a nursing degree. Now, it doesn't mean a nurse can't be, but it's a different skill set. And a lot of times I feel like organizations don't do a great job in helping that person to realize those skills and figure out the operations.
Yes.
So you coach specifically PTs on leadership through operations. What's one blind spot most people you work with don't realize that they actually have? By definition, we don't know we have blind spots because we just what we're seeing every day. So what's one or two that you see most often that once you get it to go away, if as soon as they realize it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think sometimes one of the blind spots is that we get into ruts. We're not as PTs, especially young PTs, are so caught up in being learning how to be a clinician that they get tunnel vision, and they get tunnel vision on those things, but they're not looking outside. And then they stop looking for opportunities to be outside, of just being a clinician. Because, like with any others, like you said, there's a management and leadership degree. I don't think, and what I see is, I don't see PTs seeking out opportunities to grow themselves beyond being a good clinician, and so when they do that, you really have quite a stud of a PT, because well-rounded people are much more effective than tunnel vision people, right? Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest blind spots is it's not just continuous education in the PT realm. They need to look for outside ways to grow and challenge themselves, and we just don't always do that.
Yeah, there's that great quote, and people always have the quote. I did for the first 25 years of my life, they have that quote. It's the famous quote is, a jack of all trades is a master of none. And I was like, well, that means focus on one thing, right? But that's half the quote. There's literally a comma, and it says, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Right.
So like, and if you want to do more different things, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a master clinician and focus and be a craftsman of your craft. But if you're looking to do different things, that can open a bunch of different more doors. Now, is more doors or different doors better? Depends. That's where I get to be a PT again. I go, it depends. Depends on a lot. But if that's the answer, then maybe you do want to be a jack of all trades.
Well, and my kind of retort with anybody that doesn't want to look outside of there, it's like, tell me what, if you do that, if you look outside, how will that hurt you? It's like, tell me the damage that doing something outside of this and growing something,
Right.
tell me what that's going to cause damage to. And it's not. It's just you, and you'd be amazed that the master clinicians usually have such a really rounded perspective. I've seen master technicians of PT that were, their technique was sound and clinical, but they were not master clinicians. And it's because they didn't get the human element and they didn't walk towards that
Right.
with their training.
Right.
You know?
Josh, you ready? We're going to play a game. You ready for a game?
Yes.
Let's do the game. All right. We customized the game just for you, Josh. We're
Okay.
changing game time. This one's called the Operator's Edge.
Okay.
We know you love helping PTs become better leaders, but let's find out how fast you can lead in a game we call the Operator's Edge. Quick answers only.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. Rapid fire. We're going to do 5. Josh, what's the number one, can't be several, has to be number one metric every clinic should track, but typically doesn't? What's not on the scoreboard, but should be for a clinic?
Visits per discharge.
Ooh, okay. Why? I'll let you go into a little deep why.
Because, well, visits per discharge. So, how many visits did they come to prior to being discharged? And did they sell? It tells you, number one, if you've got a low visits per discharge, those patients are falling off. And if they're falling off, then there's a lot of questions that need to be asked. That doesn't mean they're bad. They're a bad clinician. And I mean, I think that's another thing I want. They need to know that this is all just information. And the measures are where we're going to start the questioning to figure out how we can be better. But I think that's a very, very good one that people just don't know.
All right, number 2 on Operator's Edge. Best leadership book you'd recommend to a physical therapist who wants to become a clinic manager or is a clinical manager that wants to upgrade?
Man, I've read some good ones. Anything from Brene Brown is amazing. Adam Grant, he had a book that was really good. The one that I'm going to recommend, and I don't remember the author's name, you'll have to forgive me, but it's called Super Communicators.
Oh, yes. I've heard this several times. Yeah.
It's a really great book. It's about negotiating conversations, and a lot of the missed communications that we have are not because of anything other than we're having a different conversation than we thought we were having. So,
Hemingway said the biggest problem in communication is when we think it actually occurred.
Right.
Well, absolutely. I said it, so you must have heard it. Well, I heard it, but I don't understand it. And it's not over till it's understood.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a listening and a receiving. And,
Correct.
if I'm talking about one thing, and what's really interesting is in that book, they talked about how you actually are negotiating a conversation in the beginning of a conversation.
Always.
What conversation are we having? What are we actually talking about?
Right.
And if you're not in tuned to, what you're actually speaking about, then that other person that you're talking at has no ability to receive.
The funny part is, and I've seen this with healthcare people because they are led by so much of their heart, that when they get around business people or other people who are more direct and to the point, and they ask them a question like, what is the purpose of this meeting? Sometimes they get offended by that. When really they should lean into it and be like, hey, listen, this is actually honing this down. Does this need to be a conversation, or can I just answer this in an email? Brevity is the soul of wit, said someone famous once. Probably.
I had an aha moment when I was listening to Brene Brown's book. And she said, clear as kind.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And I love that quote. And it's powerful because if you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't understand, we all need to be on the same page. So saying something that you may not like doesn't mean it's not kind.
Right.
It would be kind to lie to somebody, or kind to just let them be ignorant. I mean, that's not kind at all.
It's not kind.
But I love the clear as kind. And that's kind of how have always tried to be a leader is with clearness, and kindness, but clearness. I mean, you want to have clarity when you're speaking to somebody. In fact,
First thing, go ahead.
I had a one time we were merging clinics, and I had a boss he's just such the nicest guy. He was, I mean, honestly, just one of the kindest human beings on the face of the planet. It was a hard conversation, but he had a tendency sometimes to kind of beat around the bush. And I could tell the clinic director that we were speaking to, her reaction was not what I was kind of expecting. And so then I went back the next morning, but I just kind of let it go. I went back to her the next morning and I said, "Hey, so with our conversation, yesterday, tell me what you heard." And she told me, and I was like, "Okay, that's completely wrong. This is what it means."
The funny part is, and obviously with the background of communications, this is really interesting and important to me, is that the onus, the responsibility on the clarity of the communication is still on the sender,
Right.
until you are assured that it gets understood. And I give this example all the time, and it's always laughed at because it's meant to be ridiculous. It's like, Josh, I could be the most efficient third grade teacher on the planet. I'd blow through that syllabus no matter what it is in 3 weeks. Now,
Right.
those third graders would have no idea what I said.
Right.
But if my job was just get through the syllabus,
Right.
I'm
Cleared it in
good.
a day. One.
Are you still staying late just to finish your notes? Aphelis Scribe uses ambient AI to auto-generate documentation, so your notes are done before you leave the room. You want to see how it works? Email me now at jimmy@ptpintcast.com. I'll give you a quick demo. Every kid is just kind of staring at me like, what the hell was that? So that's not a third grade teacher's job. It's to get through the syllabus and achieve as much understanding as they can with each student based on the limitations. Just because it's adult to adult doesn't mean that there's some information fall off sometimes. And it's still on you.
Right.
Like, that's where I think a lot of, if you lead top down, well, I said it, I emailed it, or I said it in a meeting. Did you follow up and ask that question? What did you hear in that meeting yesterday?
Right.
Okay, that's not it. That's on me. I'm going to own that.
Right.
Let me do it again. Let me try it again.
Just going back to your blind spot question, when you talked about, I think that's another blind spot for PTs. That we're so focused on getting through our evaluation and getting the information that we're not actually reading the body language of the person.
Big deal.
That we're talking to, because I was taught later and learned, but when you can kind of see whether somebody's engaged or not.
Totally.
And then when you look at them and then you go, I see it, the conversation then you can have is, I see there's some hesitation or there's some sort of trepidation. You seem like you're not quite there with what I'm telling you. Can you tell me what's
right?
Can you tell me what the barrier is?
If I were to channel, did you ever hear of Chris Voss? He was a former FBI hostage negotiator. He wrote a bestseller called Never Split the Difference.
Okay.
And he has a bunch of little, like, in that situation, because of course his FBI hostage negotiator, a little higher stakes, right?
Right.
So he knew how, or he didn't know how to. He learned how to. It looks as if, it sounds like those little phrases. What it does is, if the answer is no, actually I understood everything, like, it gives them an out.
Right.
But Absolutely. It starts going towards that person without cornering them. Because he's like, Absolutely. What am I going to do in a hostage situation? Yell at the guy on the phone? He's going to start killing hostages. That's not my, no. The goal is, and he had a great line, and I think you said something like this before, every conversation is a negotiation for information. I mean, I want you to understand something. I want to get information from you. I'm trying to figure out, like, when he said that, I had to put the book down. And I was like, everyone, and he goes, business, hostage negotiating, your girlfriend, a stranger, all of it. And I was like, oh my God, like, there's very few universal truths out there.
Right.
But he was like, show me a situation where this doesn't happen. And I was like, hang on a second, I'm going to find one. And I'm like, not really, is it absolute? I don't know, but it's pretty damn close. And when I realized that, I started looking at every conversation differently. And isn't that the mark of a good book?
Right. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That was kind of another watershed moment for me, was to listen to I was like, that's why people get crossways. They're talking at each other.
They don't dislike you. They might not have understood what you just said. Absolutely. Alan Alda, you know Alan Alda, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He wrote a book called If I Understood. This is the title of the book. The title of the book is If I Understood What You Just Said, Would I Still Have This Look on My Face? He went in for dental surgery early in his acting career, and somewhere in the paperwork or the whatever, they said, "Hey, by the way, we might hit a nerve and paralyze your face." But he didn't hear that because he's like, "If I had known that, I wouldn't have said yes because I'm an actor. Like
Right.
90% of what I do is on my face."
Absolutely. Mhm.
So he actually has the Alan Alda Center for Science Communication at Stony Brook University. He was
Really?
so passionate about like that one thing about communication, but that's also what acting really is, right? Maybe not science communication, but it's transmitting emotions, thoughts, ideas from a person to another in a variety of ways. And I just thought it was like how important it is. But if you look at syllabi, if you look at
Yeah.
the syllabus at a PT school or any medical school, communication and how to do it, not on there.
No, it's not. And it's they tell you what's open to closed questions, get
Correct.
to the answer,
Right.
and then use your algorithm, and it's all very clinical, which is great. But I think that pivot, being able to pivot, because, and I'm assuming you've probably had this happen as well. I had a patient one time. She had I think 7 or 8 neck and back surgeries, and she was on all sorts of opioids and came in and on a walker. And we, it was in the evening, and I sat down, I did my evaluation, and I could tell within like 15 minutes I wasn't going to get anywhere with today.
Right.
And so I just said, okay. And I put all my stuff down, and I said, listen, this is what we're going to do today. I want you to put your mind at ease. We're not going to do a bunch of stuff. We're going to come together. We're going to get a good plan together. You and I, we're going to talk. And she cried and carried on. And she had such a great outcome, and actually said, I feel better when she left.
Wow.
And I mean, that was the first time I had ever done that, and the first time I feel like I'd ever treated the person. She didn't need me to do a bunch of stuff. She needed me to listen.
Yeah. Big deal. But you got to read and
And
recognize and then do it.
I mean, and then being able to go and I think young clinicians feel that pressure to get things done, but sometimes that is what getting it done looks like. And but we don't train that.
No.
We don't train that at all. That's a
Yeah.
foreign concept in PT school, because you
Right.
get to an answer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that I agree with you, if we spent more time in communication, because we're in the business of helping people, right? I mean, that's what we do. We help people. We don't heal injuries. Injuries heal. We just help the people with
Right.
their injuries. So, I mean, I think that we do need to spend more time in our education teaching those types of, I hate to say soft skills, but because they're not easy or soft. But they're
I've
learned.
I've got a presentation I've give sometimes. It's called "Why Are These Soft Skills So Damn Hard?"
Exactly. I like it.
Because yeah, by labeling it soft, it's like, well, it's easy. It's like, well, I speak English, so therefore I know how to ask questions. And I'm like, man, there's a skill to it. I've been asking questions most of my life professionally, and I
Yeah.
still think about what I'm going to ask next
Right. Well,
because
and
there's a
then
reason.
absolutely, and then go try to write a test. Have you ever tried to write a test?
No, but that's
It's
insanely hard.
that's insanely hard. Yeah. So I mean, these skills, but it's communication. It's
Right.
still communication, is just written. But
All of it.
I do think we need to work on our communication as physical therapists. It just,
Agreed.
we have the right intent. Everybody has the right intent, but
How do we
I
get
guess
there?
there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is supposed to be rapid fire, but we got off
Oh,
on a.
sorry
I
about that.
like it though. I like it. No, I like the weeds. Two more. First
Yep.
thing you'd cut from a clinic budget if times get tight. What's the first thing you'd cut? Not an
Oh,
easy question.
no. The first thing that I would cut would be anything that wasn't directly pointed at the patient. I think, um, and and I'm not trying to dodge the question, because I don't know what that would be for every clinic, because every clinic is very different. Um, I think I don't like making cuts. I've had to. It's,
Right.
you can cut your way out of business. But I think that anything that doesn't directly go to that patient, um, whether it's, I think the first thing people do is they go to management and they go, well, we need to just remove the management. Well, the management is helping them succeed. So maybe
Right.
there's some other things that, and not always, but maybe there's some other things that we could go to, whether it's, I know a lot of people need to give out free t-shirts and things like that. Maybe there's some fluff that may not be the defining factor of what your success is.
Right.
And then it also the nature of what the problem is. It is, Is the clinic director the problem? Are they in the wrong seat on the bus? Is it, I mean, can we, how many times have we seen a really great clinician get into the driver's seat and go, they're not a great, like you said before, they're not a great leader. So would I cut them? No. But would I put them back as a clinician? Yes. And then maybe find somebody else to drive the bus. It may be as simple as that, where we don't have to cut. If I can find ways not to cut, that's what I want to do, because I want to find these inefficiencies. Maybe it's a process. Maybe it's an intake process where, their patients are showing up 30 minutes and the paperwork's taking 45 minutes. So no matter what, you're behind 15 minutes at the start of your day. Well, that then pushes you behind and you're not as effective as the rest of the day and you're stressed out. It may be some of those things. So I try not to cut if at all possible. But it would just depend on the situations.
Last one. Most underrated skill in a clinic director.
Most underrated skill would be communication and setting realistic goals. I mean, I think, the clinic director's job is to drive the culture, but they're also there to hold people accountable. And so I've seen a lot of times where people get into that and then they change from what they were to what they think they should be. And so I think that it's just a matter of being able to communicate what they need from their staff and build that culture.
All right, last thing we do, Josh, on the show is called the parting shot. Usually I keep it open-ended and say, like, whatever you want the last thing to be, but I'll give you a little bit of a prompt. You can take this one and run on your own. But if you had 30, 40, 60 seconds to fire up a room full of PTs who do feel stuck or undervalued in their role, what would you say to them for them to get back in the driver's seat of their own career and help their profession, their clinic, their business, and their patients, all those things? What would you say to fire them up?
I think I would challenge them on the responsibility that they took when they went to PT school. This profession is not about us. It's about helping people and helping our patients and helping make society better. That was a responsibility that we signed up for. And it's hard. It's a hard job. Nobody comes to us on their best day. Nobody comes to us feeling good. They're not there for that. And it takes a lot out of you. But this is what we signed up for. And so we need to make sure that we have that grit and determination and that focus, that outward focus on, my job is to get these patients better. My job is to make society healthier. My job is to do what I said I was going to do in PT school. And it's hard, but that doesn't absolve us of the responsibility that we've signed up for. And I don't know if that's a negative way to look at it, but I do. I think it's a tremendous responsibility and an honor to serve people, and we need to remember that.
If someone wanted to get in touch, where would you send them, Josh, if they want to reach you?
My email, joshfarley75@gmail.com.
Perfect. Hey, appreciate the conversation. Love the fact that you push on communications, because I get tired of being the only person saying how important it is.
Oh, it's huge. We're social creatures, man.
We are. Josh Farley, appreciate your time, man.
Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Like what you heard? Great. Subscribe to the show on Apple or Spotify. You can watch the episodes on YouTube. Or don't. I'm not your boss. You want to specialize in ortho, neuro, or sports physical therapy and actually get paid while doing it? Brooks IHL offers accredited residencies and fellowships with full salary, full benefits, and real mentorship from clinical experts. Learn more and apply at brooksihl.org. There aren't nearly enough podcasts in this world. Said no one. Why not launch one more? If you thought about launching a show but don't quite know how, we can help you do all that back-end stuff. Email me at jimmy@ptpintcast.com and we can add one more podcast no one else will listen to the pile.